So in today's video, I wanted to try a series of videos, I don't know how many there'll be, where I wanted to just make a bib. I have, over the years, I've had a lot of a lot of married friends who've had children, and I usually knit bibs or baby clothes for them. My attention span is not super long when it comes to projects, so I like something that's quick and easy to do. And so I decided that since I was going to do a bib, there were a bunch of little new techniques for a beginner knitter to expand their repertoire. So I thought I would use the bib pattern as an example for that. Now, I went on a knitting site. Well, I use it as a knitting site. They have other weaving and crochet and things like that on the site called Ravelry.com. Okay, and you can pay for patterns, but you can also get free patterns. So probably about 15 years ago, I went on there and I got a whole bunch of wonderful bib patterns from Elaine Fitzpatrick. And so she's got many different types and dishcloths as well. And I really enjoyed making her patterns. They were, I had to concentrate to make them because there's a lot of knit and purl. So there's not a lot that you needed to know in order to do her patterns. You need to know how to knit, you need to know how to purl, cast on, cast off. Now the bib will add on a few extra techniques that you may not already be aware of, right? So you're going to need to learn how to increase. You're going to need to know how to decrease, which I'll show in the videos. You'll need to know how to make an I-cord for the actual tying off of the actual bib. Okay. In this particular one, it also shows you how to do a moss stitch, which looks like kind of little beads when you do the knitting. Okay, so basically it's like a knit purl kind of pattern, and then it reverses it on the other side. Now, I just want to do a proclaim basically from Elaine Fitzpatrick. As I said, this pattern, I got this from like 2011, and I'm pretty sure I must have downloaded it back then because I have a very old pattern. I went online to make sure that the pattern was still available in case you guys wanted to follow along on your own, because I'm not going to be providing the pattern on the actual website, on the actual video, and basically it is still there, okay, but there was an updated version, so I just printed that because apparently I guess there were some issues with numbers way back then, and I don't remember that, but it's possible that that was the case. So she states very in her pattern, this pattern is called Stretch, okay, so it's going to be a picture of a giraffe, okay, on the actual bib. So she says, permission is granted to make and sell items from this pattern, provided that credit is given to her as the designer, okay, Elaine Fitzpatrick. Permission is not granted to reproduce the actual pattern or post it or distribute it without her express permission. And she asks that you respect her copyright and obviously play nice. So even though I'm using the pattern to show you the techniques, I'm not obviously going to be giving out the pattern and things like that. If you're interested, as I said, in following along based on the techniques you learn in the video, by all means, you can go to the stretch pattern that she's got, but she's got so many, right? So the techniques I'm using could be used for any of her patterns, basically. Her bibs or her, I think they're like washcloths or dishcloths that she's got there as well. So again, it's not super difficult. I'm just going to show you how those techniques kind of relate. And then basically, then you have a whole world open to you to many different types of patterns, not only including Elaine's. Okay, so what am I using when I typically do a bib? I use 100% cotton. So I went to Michael's, bought 100% cotton. Okay, and these ones are from this one's from Bernat Yarnspirations. Okay, I find they're like, I think they're $2, $3. And sometimes they come on sale. So I just buy a whole bunch of these, and usually one is sufficient for an entire bib, okay? And then you have a little bit left over, I believe, okay? This one is asking for, to use medium, so it's medium, it's a 4, okay? The knitting needles it's asking for is 4.5 millimeters, okay? So that's what I'm going to be using for this. You could use obviously slightly smaller needles. I think her pattern calls for, I think, 3.75, depending on how dense the fabric and how stiff the fabric you want, okay? But I think I've typically used, it's been a while since I've done a bib. Most of my friends are getting older and not having babies anymore. But it's, I think the 4.5 is typically what I've used in the past, okay? So let me get set up, okay? And to show you some of the things you're obviously going to know, we'll start off the pattern, okay? And well, I'll do a certain amount. I don't know again how many videos I'm going to use, but I'm not going to do the whole bib obviously online. There'll be certain parts that I'm showing you that you're able to figure out on your own when you're using other people's patterns, or even to make your own pattern if you wish. Okay? So give me one moment. So to do this pattern, you don't need a whole lot. You need your yarn, okay? Again, cotton is preferable, especially for a bib. It's going to get stained a lot. My friends over the years have loved these bibs. They say they wash extremely well. They last a long time as well, so they do tend to clamor for these bibs. Basically, you need your knitting needles for whatever whatever cotton yarn you end up getting. I tend to prefer metal needles because of the arthritis that I've got. It tends to be a lot lighter in my hand, so it takes a while before my hands start to ache. You're going to need basically just one. Okay, it comes, obviously I bought a set, but just one double pointed needle at the end there basically. Now this I bought for something else. It may actually work for what I need. I'll have to actually see if it's the correct size, but down the road towards the end of the bib, we'll be making an I-cord. Okay, so what are some things that you're going to be learning in this particular set of videos? Basically, well, I've already shown you in previous videos how to knit, how to purl. Okay, we're going to basically learn to increase a stitch, decrease a stitch. You're going to learn how to make an I-cord. You're going to learn how to pass slipped stitch over. Okay, you're going to learn how to knit 2 stitches together or purl 2 stitches together. And that's about it. So I'm showing you on the screen right now that you've got a bunch of abbreviations that you may see in various patterns for those particular instructions. Okay, so the first thing that the pattern asks us for is basically to cast. So if you go by Elaine's pattern specifically for stretch, okay. There's 2 ways of starting it. There's the short row version, and there's also the traditional version. I like the traditional beginning. That's what I tend to do, where you start, you cast on, you're going to do 1 row, and then you're going to continue to increase basically as you go along. Okay? So basically, let's start on. We're going to cast on 15. In a previous video, I've shown you how to do this. So again, if you need a little bit more information, obviously feel free to go back to that video. So I'm going to leave enough that hopefully I get 15 out of this. You do want to have enough of a tail at the end that you can take a darning needle and weave it into your bib so that you're not leaving a knot or anything like that. Okay, so I always leave more than I need. Okay, so I'm going to do this here. Okay, so I always use my thumb when I cast on. So I do my thumb, I make my cross because this is like pretending that it is my second needle. I put it through. Okay, now make sure. Okay, so I put it through. All right, I'm going to come around. All right, so you can see there I've come around, and this is going to go into this hole right here. Okay, all right, so I've done my, oh, hold on, can't do this slowly. All right, there we go. 1 there, the first one there. Okay, and I'm going to do 15 of these. Oh, Cisco knows I'm videotaping, so that's what. That boy has a 6th sense to know when I'm videotaping. Yes, my boy. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, what do I got here? 1, 3, 6, 9, 12. Yes, my boy. 13, 14, and 15. Okay. All right. So here's my 15 casts on. Now I do have enough that I could go in for a few stitches to do so. If I wanted to have longer, I could undo it and just extend it a little bit more. Okay. The first row, basically, we're going to turn it around. The first row is asking us literally to purl and knit all the way across. Okay, so remember, purling was going down, knitting was going up. Okay, so again, usually I have this kind of against my body, and it's kind of hard to do that right now with the video. Okay, so I'm going to purl one. So I go downwards into the loop. Yes, says go. Okay, now I want to have my yarn in front of me for this. Yes, I love you too, sweetheart. Okay. And so then I'm going to go around it, wrap it around. I'm going to go through the loop that's here. Okay, not the one that's wrapped around, but between the wrap around and the loop. Yeah, this is not helpful. Okay. The next one is a knit. So I'm going to go upwards in the loop, trying not to poke. Oh, sorry, hold on. So when you're going backwards, thank you. When you're going backwards and forwards, you basically want to have the yarn in front if you're purling. You want to have the yarn behind if you are knitting. So I'm going to put it behind. I'm going to knit, make my cross. Okay. All right. Okay. Then I need to purl. So I'm going to bring it to the front. All right. Purl. Okay. Now, unfortunately, this is going against the desk, which is making tons of noise. All right. So we're just going to go back and forth. I think I might find a match or something so I don't hear the scraping. This is, as I said, it's usually propped against my body, so I don't have to listen to this. All right. Again, I do have a video on how to knit and purl more slowly, obviously. You want to make sure that you have those 2 stitches down pat, and how to increase and decrease. Feel comfortable doing that before you start moving on to this pattern. Okay? And again, I have a tendency when I knit, I tend to knit very tight, and so as soon as I find out that I'm having a hard time putting the needle in, I know that I need to relax my hands and leave it loose enough to do that. You might have the opposite problem, it depends, okay? All right, so this is the last one here, okay? So there's our first row. That's not the sexiest first row, unfortunately. I find my first row never looks great, okay, to be perfectly honest. And again, if I'm finding that it's too holy as we go through, I may need to reduce my size of needle to do that. She does recommend, as I said, 3.75. She also recommends a particular type of yarn, which I don't find in Canada, so it's got obviously something in the States. But this is what I've always used when I'm doing the actual bibs themselves. Okay, then it says in so that's row 1. Now we're in row 2. So row 2 basically is asking us to cast on or increase. Now it's different when you're trying to increase a stitch in the middle of something. Okay, right now I'm not increasing a stitch in the middle, I'm going to be increasing it at the ends. So what you want to do is we want to do the same thing that we did for casting on, but instead of using my left thumb, okay, in order to wrap the yarn around, I'm going to use my right thumb. So I'm not as good with this for whatever reason. So I'm going to, okay, knitting needs infinite patience when you have cats, okay. Neelix is usually the one running away with my, thank you, with my yarn and stuff. Cisco, we got both of them, the brothers, from a rescue, and unfortunately their third brother passed away last year, but he has pica, so he likes to basically eat things that are not normal, and one of them, for whatever reason, happens to be yarn, so I have to be really, really careful about my yarn. It's always, you know, kept in an area where it cannot be accessed, but Neelix has an infinite desire to search out yarn and then drag it throughout the entire house. So between those two, they drive me mad sometimes. So I just picked up my ball and he chewed it. He didn't eat it, thankfully. He chewed it. So one of the things that will be part of this video, yes, you're such a suck. Yeah, try and get your 15 minutes, 15 seconds of fame. Anyways, so basically, I will show you how to weave in if you run out of a ball and you need to start another ball on a project, how to do that when we get to that part, okay? All right, yes. Okay, so the third row basically requires us to cast on, okay, at the ends, all right? So what you want to do is you want to take your yarn, the working yarn, you want to put it behind your right thumb, okay? You're going to put it through, and then you're just going to let it go, okay? I'm going to do it again. Put it behind my thumb, make my cross, okay? I'm going to put the needle through and let it go. So I've made 2. And again, one last time, okay? I do that, okay? So I've added my 3, so I should have at this point 18. So I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, okay? And then basically it's asking me, I'm going to knit 1, purl 1 along the way. And I'm going to keep doing that, okay, casting on 3, knitting and purling for several rows, okay? And it's going to end up making kind of a stitch that has a whole bunch of beads along the way. So let me do a whole bunch of the different, and so of course, I've done the 3 adding here. I'm going to knit and purl across. So you're like, well, if you're only adding to one side at the beginning all the time, it's going to be a problem. But no, because remember, the next row, I'm going to be, turning it, and it'll be on this side that I'll be adding 3, and then knitting and purling across and so forth. Okay? So let me get back. Let me do a few rows, and let's get back to you, and I'm going to show you basically what it starts to look like. Okay? Okay, so a couple of things. I added in, I guess you could say a stitch, not a stitch marker, what is it? A counter. Okay, there's all different kinds that you can buy. You can put them on your knitting needle. I have another one that I actually just click every time I finish so that I know on which row it is. You'll notice with Elaine's patterns, they can go up to 60, 70 rows. You're going to have different ways, obviously, of marking that. You could use a post-it note to know which line you're on. You especially want to know which line you finished on because these are actual pictures. If you actually do the wrong line, it screws up the entire picture, right? So you want to make sure that you are following line by line, okay? So what I did here is that I did my second row, okay? And I want you to be able to look, okay, basically. And when you are turning around, okay, it'll tell you basically, like the third row, I need to cast on 3, which we'll do in a second. And we're going to knit purl again, okay? But the question is that what happens if, I don't know, somebody talks to you or whatever, do you have to go back and recount knit, purl to know which one you're doing? No, because you can actually look at it and tell. So when you actually pull down a little bit, you're going to see, okay, and I'm not sure if you can, you're going to see that this one, for example, is a V. So that was a knit, okay? And then basically the other one here, if I pull it down the side, it has kind of like a loop going at the top. There's no V there. So that one was a purl, okay? So that kind of allows you to see, and after a while you're going to, after you've done a few rows, you're going to be able to tell, very quickly what it is that you want, okay? So basically I've done knit purl, okay? So you're going to notice that I need to do knit purl again. So this is a knitted one. You can't really tell the end one. This one here has a loop right across, so it's a purl. This one here is a knit, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way across this one here after I've added the 3. So again, we're going to go around here to the back, make our cross, go through the hole, add 1, go through the back, add 2, through the back and through the hole, add 3. And then I'm going to knit purl all the way across. Okay, now you're going to notice that when you're actually increasing and you're adding, your 3 cast on stitches on each side, you're going to basically knit 1, purl 1 for 2 rows. You're going to purl 1, knit 1 for 2 rows. And then you're doing knit 1, purl 1 for 4 different rows basically. Okay? And that's including different amounts of cast on and, and slowly increasing. So you're going to notice that this kind of starts to go kind of more rounded because you're increasing, okay? But again, look at the pattern itself to find out precisely how many you're doing and how many stitches you should have, when you're actually doing the actual row to make sure that you've got the proper count. So I'm going to do several rows. I'm going to come back and then we'll take a look at what the actual stitch is looking like. Okay? Now, one thing I'm noticing is that, which may surprise you and worry you a little bit, is that you've done your cast on, you're starting to do your knit purl this way or your purl knit this way, depending on what row you're on. And sometimes when you do it, it pulls apart like really wide like this, and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to have that kind of amount of space, you know, between stitches. It would look strange, okay? So basically, that's not, you don't need to worry about that, because obviously as you do it, you're tightening this to pull that back in, okay? So now, for example, I just lost my train of thought, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got to figure out where I am in the thing. So this one is a knit, this one is a purl. So if this is a purl, okay, I need it in front. I'm going to put it through here, put it around, put it through the loop, pull it over, okay? And then I'm going to go to, oh, you know what? Oh, yeah, that's true. Now we're going to have to change soon because, of course, the part was bit off. So now I put it to the back. I do my knit. Okay. I do my purl. Okay. So it does pull itself in, so you don't have to worry about, you know, having very, very loose stitches, but that will happen when you do the cast on ones, so don't worry about that. Okay. It's just a matter of tugging the yarn so that it does actually reduce the spacing there. So my husband loves to 3D print things, and so I thought, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity to try this. I wanted to buy myself a yarn bowl, and I thought, well, why buy a yarn bowl if my husband can 3D print one for me and enjoy himself at the same time? So he found this pattern on Thingiverse and 3D printed it for me. There's some BBs under, like this is a false bottom with some BBs underneath to add some weight to it so it's not going all over the place. So I thought, you know what, let's try and test it out to see whether it's going to go all over the table and if it's going to work for me. Okay, so because I have never used a yarn bolt before. Now, you will notice, okay, that I have come close to the end. Oh, let me adjust the camera here. Whoop. There we go. Okay, so you will notice that basically I'm running out of yarn because Cisco decided to munch on it. All right, so there's a couple ways that you could do it. Usually what I might do is I might leave the end, all right, so enough so that I can sew it in later on, okay, and then basically start another, all right. You don't want to be knotting anything, okay, or so I could basically, you know, leave a little bit of an end and now start, you know, knitting or purling with this one if I wanted, okay, but then I'd have two ends to weave in. You could potentially, okay, now again, it may be too thick for this. I've never used it for this because usually, as I said, I have one ball and I never have to break it, okay? So what you could potentially do, all right, is that I could, all right, weave with both of them. So let's try and see how thick it makes it, okay? So let me purl this, so I need to bring it in front. Let's purl that, okay? All right, put this in the back. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to basically knit this. Okay. I'm going to put this around, which is my end. I'm going to put this around, okay, which is my end. I'm going to weave both of them through, okay. So now, again, later on the next row, you would have to weave both of these together, okay. And you would do that for a few stitches, okay, so that it weaves in itself, okay, and then you could just snip it and not weave it in later. I find that a little bit, you know, hurts my brain. Okay, so I'm going to just go back here into the previous stitch, okay, I'm going to pull that back and undo, okay, so there we go, all right, there we go, okay, so what I'm going to do is what I usually do, okay, is I'm just going to go through, I'm going to leave this one alone, okay, I'm going to leave a little bit of an end with this one here, and then I'm going to knit like I normally would, okay. Now keep in mind, because there's nothing holding on to it, it's easy for it to let go, make a large loop and so forth. Just make sure you continue using. As you go through, okay, hold on, I need to go forward now. Okay, as you go through a few, it's going to secure itself, okay? So you just want to make sure you're tugging it a little bit to make sure that you've done it properly, all right? And again, I'm just looking, all right, at the ones here. So this one, as I said, it's going across, it's a, no, hold on, this one's the V, so it's a knit, this one's going across, it's a purl, all right? So I'm just going to do that for the remainder of this one, and let's see if we can find a pattern, okay, of the seed stitch. Seed stitch or moss stitch? I'm going to have to take a look here. So you can see here, this loop here is where I started. So I want to make sure I tighten it, okay? If you want, you could potentially just tie these together, but you don't want them to have a knot or whatever at the end, okay? You want to just, you know, usually like I might twist them together, for example, so that they do stay together, okay? So let me continue on, and I'll come back shortly. Okay, so I continued on with the next row. These are the two basically that we joined, okay? I didn't knot them, I just kind of tied them together so they wouldn't be flopping all over the place, so they stay a little bit secure. But again, when I'm going past it, okay, so same thing as I did before, I do my knit purl, so this one needs to be a knit, okay? And again, all right, it's going to be wanting to be a little bit loose there, so I'm just going to pull it together, to tighten it up a little bit. Okay, once you've gone past like a row or two, it's not going to be an issue, okay? And of course, I'm going to undo this later on at the end when I need to actually weave in the ends, okay? So hold on a sec here. There we go. Okay, and then we just continue on basically till the end of the row, okay? Okay, so another trick is that what happens if, let's say you've made a boo-boo, I haven't, but let's say we have to put the stitches back on and undo some of these stitches, okay? Now, some people feel confident enough, they take the loops right off the needle, and then they just undo it, and they somehow miraculously get all the loops back on in the correct, not only in the correct twist, but also picks them all up. I never do. I somehow manage to always like slip stitches, okay? So I literally will go one at a time. So I go to the loop that's below, not the one that's on, I go to the loop that's below, I put it back on so that it's not twisted, okay? So I don't do this, okay? Thanks, there. Okay, so I don't do this so that it gets all twisted. I go back the way it would be. And then I just loop it off, and then I pull the yarn through, and we're good. Now again, we've been doing purl and knit, right? So I'm gonna have to go backwards and forwards with my actual needle here, the yarn. So I'm gonna take this one here, I'm gonna pull it over, I'm going to pull through, okay, and then I'm going to bring it into the front. I'm going to go through again on the hole. Oops, make sure you don't split the yarn there, okay. Going to pull it over, all right, and again there, all right. So basically, and if I had to, you know, redo it because I mixed up on something or whatever, I can do that, okay. So it's easy to undo stitches. I do them one at a time. The worst thing is when you find out you've done like 3 or 4 rows and then you notice a mistake. And as I said, a lot of people will just literally unwrap, go back and forth and unwrap it and then pick up all the loops. But I've noticed that whenever I do that, I have some that are twisted in the wrong configuration, or I've lost some stitches because it's starting to run all the way down, and I almost want to cry when I do that. So I just literally do it one at a time, even if it's a few rows that I have to do that. it's easier for me so that I don't lose whatever stitches I've got. Okay, but again, if you're able to do it the quicker way and pick all those loops up, by all means do that. It is faster. It's just never successful for me. Okay, so my yarn bowl is not sliding all over the place. It seems to be heavy enough that it's staying in one place, but I am having some problems with this. So I always have this problem. Whenever I take a ball of yarn, you've got one that basically is wrapped around the outside. You've got, here, let me put that up a little bit here. You've got one that's wrapping around the outside, and you've got one that's supposed to be coming out from like inside here. And I didn't see that one here, actually, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so because I didn't pull out from the middle, okay, it's not coming out constantly. So what I'm finding is that as I finally get to the end, okay, I'm pulling it, and then I get, oh, actually, of course it would be coming now. Okay, but I find that it's getting stuck, okay, and it's not pulling because it wants to turn the whole ball around. So make sure if you're using a yarn bowl that you are pulling it out from the one that comes from the in the center here, okay? And again, which I haven't seen, it's probably in here with some yarn barf that I should have taken out in order to get it from coming on from the inside. Okay, so that's the only thing I have noticed with the yarn bowl, but I do find it nice. It's not rolling all over the floor, so Neelix, you know, his eyes glitter as soon as he sees a rolling ball of yarn there. It keeps it in one place. Okay, and I don't know, like in this case here, this is plastic. I've got hardwood floors downstairs. So I might put maybe some sort of like little rubber nubbins or something like that so that it's not, you know, pulling on the or scratching the hardwood floor, or even pulling on you know, on the carpet or sliding on the carpet or on the table. I might do that at some point. Just pick up 4 or 5 of them so that they gives it a little bit of friction so that it doesn't move around on the table. Okay. Okay, so a couple of changes. First of all, I started to do the bib part, the first, I just finished row 11, okay, and I was finding that this was way too loose. There's a few more holes than I actually wanted, so I actually decided to go back to 3.75 millimeters. I started all over again. I decided not to have the 2 broken ends there. If I run short, I can use, I did save it so I can actually use it at the end. This is one form of counters I was telling you about that you can find a counter here that has basically like, you know, it's 0.7, you just turn it. But I remembered I used to use a clicker, like a metal clicker, but I also forgot that I bought this one here, okay, online, or I think you can get it at Michael's as well. So basically you've got your reset button here, you've just got this one here. So it's meant to be on your finger. I find that when I'm knitting, this on my finger is way too big. It's a bit of a pain. So what I end up doing basically, this one is by Susan Bates, okay, and what I end up doing is I just have it beside me, and every time I'm on the next row, I basically click it, okay? So I'm going to end this segment shortly. I've gone, if you're following along on the pattern, I've done up to the end of row 11. The next video will continue on from row 12 onwards. So in this pattern, basically, we started and we did all the increases, for example. This here has resulted in a moss stitch, okay? So basically, if you take a look at it, all right, I'm not sure if you can see it properly or not. It looks like it's very similar to a seed stitch, but it's not a seed stitch, okay? So what ends up happening is that you've got basically, you knit purl, okay, across the first 2 rows. You will purl knit along the next 2 rows. And then you knit purl for the next 4 rows, and that's giving you your moss stitch. And you can, you know, repeat that as often as you need to get this particular pattern. So it's basically you're getting these little kind of bubbles, but they are further apart than they normally would be in a seed stitch. In the next segment, basically, we will be doing seed stitch on the sides, okay? And I'll show you what that basically looks like in comparison to the actual moss stitch, okay? So I hope that helps for the first 11 rows to get you started, and then I'm going to come back and start the next segment where we're actually doing the picture of the giraffe with seed stitch on either side of the picture that we're making. Okay, so I hope that helps for now, and have a great day.